today. So I'm here to do a coloring chat and a very quick reading update. So I usually do kind of, what I've been reading video every couple of months. So the last one I did was April 2nd. So it's been a bit. And while chatting today, I'll be coloring in my Rita Berman summer book. I've shown this picture multiple times at this point. It's just my current project page, so I'm gonna stick to working on it. And I am using Brute Funner pencils, as well as this Lyra Rembrandt blender pencil on some things, but definitely not everything. But I'm just working on this flower down here for right now. So maybe I can just bring it up. And I do put a blotter sheet in the back, not because I'm using markers or anything, but because if you press down quite hard or something, the print can transfer. So I just do that. But yeah, let me just find what pencil I'm supposed to be using. I think it's this one. Also, sorry this video is a couple days late. It's been so hot here. It's been in the 90s. Fahrenheit, 36 Celsius or something. It's just been toasty. And, I live in Germany, and Germans, unfortunately, don't believe in air conditioning. So there's no air conditioning, and it's just been too hot for me to, sit down and try to, put more than 2 sentences together. But today is a little bit cooler. I mean, it's still very toasty, but it's a little bit cooler, and it's actually supposed to rain a little bit later, so I'm hoping that will cool things down at least a wee bit. But yes, that being said, let's dive into the books. So since the last update, I've read 12 books, and the first one I actually touched upon in that video a little bit in the end because I was already halfway through it with it at that point. And it's called The Queen of Hearts by Kimmery Martin. So this was a book that I was reading for one of the 2 book clubs that I'm in. And I was actually late reading it for the book club. I didn't read it in time, but I still wanted to finish it because I'd already started it. And I was kind of liking how things were going. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because I thought it was interesting and I quite liked the characters, but it was very, very medically heavy. So it follows 2 female friends, and they are both surgeons. So there was a lot of terminology. I felt like I was reading Grey's Anatomy in a way, which I did like that show, but I don't know, in book form it was just a wee bit heavy. But yeah, it just follows 2 friends and kind of a lot of flashbacks to their med school years because something happened, there's a lover involved, and yeah. So I thought it was interesting because it also deals a lot with motherhood and family structures and friendships and kind of, what happens when somebody that you love, disrespects you in a way, obviously not physically, but does something behind your back that is quite awful. Do you forgive them, or do you forever cross them out of your life, those kind of things. So I did like the book. It obviously wasn't my favorite, but I did give it 3 stars. I currently have the Goodreads up, and it looks like it has a 3.61 star average, which I think is pretty good. I think anything above a 3 on Goodreads is quite nice. Quite nice. And then after that, I moved into an audiobook. And this book I was actually super pumped for based on the synopsis. And it's actually also a shorter book. So I was cool, really nice, easy breezy audiobook. And it's called Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. And so let me read you a little bit of the synopsis, and you'll understand why I was intrigued. And it says, Esther is a stowaway. She has hidden herself away in the librarian's book wagon in an attempt to escape the marriage her father has arranged for her, a marriage to the man who was previously engaged to her best friend who she was in love with, her best friend who was just executed. So I'm like, ooh, drama. Like, it also is kind of like a dystopian setup. Like, the world resources have all run out. So the world has kind of like fallen apart and everything is turned into like the Wild West. Like, there's cowboys and stuff and cowgirls. Like, it was just, it seemed really interesting and I was all for it. And, like, it's also only 176 pages. So the audiobook I think was like 4 hours or something. So I was like, yes. Yep. This was, oh no. No, no. I was so disappointed. The only reason I actually completed it is because it was so short. Because, I was like, okay, like an hour in, I was like, this is not for me. But I was like, okay, well, like, there's only like 3 hours left of the audiobook. Like, I might as well just like play it in the background while I'm like doing things around the apartment, which is exactly what I did. So I did finish it and I gave it 1 star. And frankly, that's only because you can't give it 0 stars. Like, I was just so disappointed. The premise is so cool. The synopsis had me intrigued. The book, though, like, they don't really explain much of the background, right? So, like I said, it's kind of the world has, like, fallen apart. There's no more resources. Everybody's just using horse and buggies now because there's, like, no gas for cars. And it's just, there was, like, nothing explained about that. There was, like, no backstory. There was no character development. Like, you meet this group of librarians. So it's women who travel and they distribute books, like government-approved textbooks and stuff. And they turn out to be, like, rebels. And they're actually working with, like, the rebel armies and stuff. So, like, I want to learn more, but nothing was explained. So, not a fan, which is unfortunate. So, no, I would not recommend this one. If you read it, like, what were your thoughts on it? Am I just being too judgmental? But I feel like it was such a cool idea, and it's so, so unfortunate that the execution was just not up to par. I don't know. I'm sounding very sassy, and I realize that. After that, I read another book for my book club, and it's called Never Have I Ever by Jocelyn Jackson. This is more of like, it's a thriller book. It deals with this like quiet neighborhood in, gosh, like North Carolina, I think, or I don't remember, one of the southern states. And they have a neighborhood book club. And then one day this random woman comes and she has moved into like the Airbnb in the neighborhood, like long-term rental Airbnb. And she walks up to one of the women and she just goes like, I know what you did, pretty much, right? So from there, it's just, you as a reader, you yourself are trying to unpack what happened, like, why does this character panic so much about, I know what you did. Also, then, who is this woman, the one who made the accusation? How does she know things? Where is she coming from? So there's a lot of mystery, a lot of drama. Also, a lot of like family structure things, or like what happens behind closed doors in like a quiet suburban neighborhood. So I really liked it. I ended up giving it 5 stars actually, because I thought the drama was really, like, the thriller aspect of it was really good. I didn't really see the end coming. The book also had a good pace to it. They didn't drag it out. The book itself is 352 pages. I can't remember if I read it or if I listened to it. I read it. I definitely read it. So it did not feel that long, I'll be honest. Like, it just felt like a breeze. This is the first book I've ever read by the author, but I am anxious to see what else she has because it was lovely. It was lovely. I actually ended up not attending this book club just because of like prior commitments, but I did still read the book and I thought it was magnificent. And then I moved on to West End Girls by Jenny Colgan. So Jenny Colgan is an author I think I discovered last year. So she tends to write a lot of like fluffy contemporaries, and a lot of them center on Scotland, like remote Scotland villages and stuff. And to me, they're all super cozy. A lot of them take place also like during the wintertime, the holidays. And I've read a handful of her books at this point, and I've always liked all of them. So I figured I would read this one, and for some reason, I was convinced this was taking place in New York City. I could not tell you why, but I was convinced that it would, and then I was like shooketh when it actually took place in London. So it follows two sisters, twins. Their paternal grandmother ends up getting ill, so she moves to like an assisted living home for a while, and she needs somebody to apartment sit for her. So she gives the apartment to the two sisters, and it's in Chelsea. So the girls relocate there, and they start taking care of the apartment, and it's kind of like about who they meet, and the two sisters are also very different. They also have very different aspirations in life and kind of the way society perceives them. So, yeah, I mean, it was very fluffy. It was very predictable, but I still enjoyed it. There's a lot of good humor in there, a lot of like sassiness and sarcasm and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I really like her stuff. I think I have like a couple more books on hold from her at the library, so I'll probably end up reading everything that Jenny Colgan has written. Because so far, I've been a fan. It's a very easy breezy book. I think it would also be the perfect book to like bring with you to the beach. Maybe not the Christmas ones, but like something like this one. Because it's just so mindlessly delightful. It's just a no-brainer. It's just a lovely read. From there on, I moved on, and I guess I could talk about all of these at the same time. I started the Cormoran Strike book series, and it's a detective book series written by Robert Galbraith, also known as J.K. Rowling. So it's written by the same person that wrote Harry Potter. And she wrote this series of mysteries based on a private detective named Cormoran Strike. So he is an illegitimate son of a rock star. He used to be in the army. So he's like rough and tumble kind of guy. And then he ends up getting this assistant named Robin. And it's kind of, you know, the things that they get up to, and yeah, just kind of things that are happening. Some cases are like he gets like quote unquote hired for. Some cases deal with his personal life kind of coming back to bite him in the rear end. So I read 3 of the books at this point. There is more. I listened to them on audiobook because to me, like the audiobooks are good quality and the stories interesting enough for me to keep up with. Because sometimes I find with audiobooks, if it's not interesting enough, I tend to like drift away, you know? But these are lovely. I've been really enjoying it. It has a good sense of humor to it. Like Robin and Cormoran are quite funny. You know, they make a lot of like sarcastic or sassy comments, which I love. So yeah, I've read 3 of them. Let's see what ratings I gave. So the first one is called The Cuckoo's Calling. I gave that one a 4 out of 5. The next one is called Silkworm. I also gave that a 4 out of 5. And the third one that I read is called Career of Evil, and I ended up giving that a 5 out of 5. So clearly I like the books. I will definitely continue reading / listening to them. I'm just currently taking a little break because I obviously have dedicated a good portion of my time in the last like 2 months to the series, and I just wanted a little breaky boo. Yeah, but I will go back to it and finish the series. I don't know if she's writing more books for the series, but so far I think it's nice. If you like a good like crime mystery kind of detective story, I would recommend this one. I also like that with like these books, you have all the same evidence as the detective does, so you can try and like guess who did it. The problem that I had with like reading Sherlock Holmes, for example, is that you don't have all the information. Like when he tells you how he knew who did what, he's like, "Oh yeah, also in the trash bin, I noticed this," but that was like never mentioned to you as a reader. So I feel like there's no way for you as a reader to try and keep up and guess, who's the guilty party. So I like that in here you do know what's happening, and you can also try to make your own conclusions. So let me just do a little blendy blend here. So I haven't used this on the entire picture, just on some parts of it. But so far I'm really liking it. Super duper colorful. So among all those Cormoran Strike detective stories, I also read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I've heard so many good things about that book. I watch quite a good amount of booktube videos, and I know some people were saying it was like their favorite book of 2020, or like some people were even saying it was their favorite book ever. So I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll give it a shot. And first of all, it was long. I thought it was hefty. And I don't know. It went into a lot of detail about like video games and like old comic books and all that kind of stuff. And that's not really one of my interests. So I think that's why I didn't enjoy this book as much as other people did. There was just a lot of description about like, I don't know, just like details of old video games or old like arcade games, and to put it lightly, like I couldn't care less. Like that was never something I was interested in. So I think that definitely impacted my enjoyment of the book. I still gave it a 3 out of 5 because it wasn't bad. Like it was interesting. There was a lot of good humor and stuff in there. But also the main character is like a teenager. So I felt like a lot of the conversations and the thoughts like were very like teenagery. So that wasn't my favorite part of it. But like I said, it still was an interesting read. It was an interesting concept. And I did give it the 3 out of 5. Wait. All right. And we're done with this flower. She's beautiful. All right. Had to sharpen the pencil. So from there, I read one of the other Cormoran Strike books. And then from there, I moved on to another book that I had super high expectations for. And it's called A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem. And it's the #1 book in A Lady's Guide series by Amanda Collins. And I like read the synopsis for this book and I was so excited. I put it on hold at the library. The wait was like super long. Like I want to say I waited multiple months to receive this book. And I was so incredibly disappointed in it. It just was like cheesy in my opinion. But like not like cute cheesy, just like okay, like I don't know. Like, when you were in like middle school or like elementary school and you had to write stories and then like everybody's story just sounded the same because everybody just used the same like cliche things. Like, and then at the end she woke up and realized she was just only dreaming. Like things like that. And I felt like this entire book was just like one cliche after another. And yeah, I just was not enthused. But I read it. Because I had waited for so long and I had such high expectations and it just really did not live up to it. I'm really sorry if you liked this book. I mean, all the power to you. It was just not my cup of tea. I ended up giving it a 1 out of 5 just because, yeah, no. And I will obviously not be continuing reading books in this series since I so strongly did not like the first one. But if you like it, that's amazing. The cover is really cute. From there, I moved on to a book that I read for the book club I have at work. And It is called Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This was like one of the most popular books of 2020. I felt like I saw it on every like top books of the year, or like award-winning books you have to read in your lifetime, like those kind of posts. And yeah, so one of my coworkers really wanted to read it because she had heard good things, so we all read it together. And I do have to say, my enjoyment of this book skyrocketed towards the ending of it, like towards the last quarter, maybe. So this book is about this little girl who lives out in the marsh of a town called Barkley Cove, and she lives there with her parents and like her siblings. Slowly, everybody abandons her. Like her mom leaves because the dad is abusive. Her siblings leave. Her dad leaves. So it's a lot about her like surviving on her own and kind of the way society perceives her. Like people just call her the marsh girl and they're like afraid of her. There is like a game for teenage boys to try and run up and touch the house and then be like, oh yeah, like I'm one of the brave ones, you know. So it's about her and kind of how she tries to get to know society and how that's viewed and how she's welcomed. And well, I'll spoil it for you, she's not. So it's just a lot about her life and, you know, her growing up. So this book is over a long period of time. And yeah, I mean, some parts of it got a little too like descriptive about like the frogs and the nature, and I was just kind of like, okay, like I get it. But I mean, I understand that the author was just building up the environment and kind of the scenery and such. But towards the end, I did start really enjoying the book. There is some events that are happening. There is like a reveal in the end where I genuinely screamed because I was reading it and I couldn't put it down. So I was reading it like in bed when I probably should have been sleeping. And then the reveal happened and I shrieked. Fortunately, I have thick walls, so I don't think I woke up my neighbors, or if I did, at least nobody called the cops on me. But I just really didn't see it coming. So, yeah. That being said, I did enjoy it. Overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Genuinely, if it wasn't for the ending, I probably would have given it like a 2 out of 5. But because of how things were manifesting themselves in the last quarter of the book, maybe 1/3 of the book, I ended up giving it a 4. And everybody in my book club also really liked the book. Not a single person did not like it. After that, I read another one of the Cormoran Strike books that I already talked about. And then I read my first ever, like, true fantasy, I would say, which, proud of myself for that one. And it is Shadow and Bone, and it's the first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I was blown away by how much I loved this book. I did not see it coming. I read it, I did not listen to it. I was like speechless pretty much by everything that was happening and how things were evolving and how you didn't see a lot of it coming and all these other things like the magic, just everything. Loved it. There were some like cheesier parts where you're like, okay, but overall, I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5. Again, I just thought it was fabulous. I did put the next book already on hold at the library, so I'm just waiting for it to be available. I will be reading it, not listening to it, just because a lot of the parts in here I had to like go back and reread because like the magic system, you know, I want to make sure I was understanding things, or the names were getting confusing to me, so I would have to like kind of flip back to see like, oh yeah, it was this person. So I will read it 100%. I'm really, really excited. They did turn this into a Netflix show as well, which I tried watching and I was really surprised. It's very different from the book. So I'm not sure if somehow like the other books are entwined in the first season of the show, because I haven't read the other books. But as of right now, like the show has characters that the book like literally does not mention. Like they're not in the book. So, but they're in the show and they're quite prevalent in the show. So I wonder if they are maybe parts of later books and they're just introduced earlier in the show. I don't know. But I'm really excited to read the other books, and now also my TBR list is getting heavier and heavier in fantasy. Because like I said, I watch a lot of like booktube videos, and if somebody mentions that they really like this book and then they mentioned another book that they liked from like a different author or something, I will add it to my TBR because I'm like, okay, if you like it, then I'll probably like it because I really liked this one. So if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. It's lovely. I think it was on the thicker side. I honestly can't remember, but it was something that I could not put down, and I really enjoyed it. I also like there was some good humor in there. The magic made sense to me, and it was just interesting. I honestly can't say good enough like good things. It took me to like a different universe, and I loved every second of it. Not to be cheesy or anything. And then the last book that I read, or I've completed, is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelids. I'm sorry if that's not correct. So this book was, highly spoken of, and again, I also saw it on a lot of like top books, top releases kind of things, and I read it, and it's like a thriller, mystery, what happened kind of book. So it follows this woman who is found next to her husband's body. He's murdered. The only handprints on the gun are hers. She's covered in his blood, so she is found guilty, and they were going to put her in prison. However, ever since the police found her in the house with the gun, she hasn't spoken a word. So she doesn't say absolutely anything, not in her defense, not to say that she's guilty. She's just silent. So she ends up being placed in a psychiatric facility because she's found not in the right state of mind to be imprisoned. And years later, I think it's 6 years later, this new doctor joins, and you follow kind of his attempts on trying to understand what happened and trying to dig deeper and get her to speak. Because in the 6 years, she never uttered a word. So she is the silent patient. So you follow, again, the doctor, and then you also have access to journal entries that are written by her, but like from the time before the murder. So you kind of see her state of mind leading up to the murder, and you see kind of her train of thought. You also meet some of the characters, some of the people in her life through the journal, and then you also meet them in like real life through the doctor, and you kind of see how they're not being honest and like as to what happened and how things went. So this was another book where the ending really surprised me, and I really enjoyed the ending. Again, like when it got towards like the last quarter of the book, I couldn't put it down. Again, stayed up way too late reading it. Yeah. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 because I did enjoy the ending, but I thought like a lot of the middle was just kind of like okay. Like I really didn't understand why we were getting so much of a perspective from the doctor. Like obviously he is her doctor, but we were getting like his like family tree and his like personal life story, and I was just like okay, but like why? And the more you read, the more it makes sense to you. But at the time I was just confused because I was like, I thought this was about, the patient, not the doctor. But it all makes sense in the end. Like they connect everything. But yeah, because of that, I give it a 3 out of 5, which I still think was a good rating. And I would recommend this book to anybody who likes like thrillers, like suspense kind of things. And I know the author came out with The Maidens, right? It's another book, and the initial reviews of it are really, really positive. I have also added it to the wish list at the library, or the hold list at the library. So I will be reading it as soon as it's available. I am currently in the midst of two different books, one like reading book and one audio book. So for the workbook club, I am reading Half of a Yellow Sun, and it takes place in Nigeria, and it follows two sisters and kind of their love interests, and also kind of what's happening in Nigeria at the time. There's a coup. This is a historical fiction, and also analyzing the impacts of post-colonialism and just colonialism, and how the native people are being treated and such. So it's definitely not like a light read, and I am reading it like a little bit at a time just to make sure that I am fully grasping the message and what's happening. And I want to understand. I want to understand this book, and I want to be able to properly follow the characters and know what's happening. So I am, I think, 35% done, something like that, according to my Kindle. And I'll definitely be finishing it for my book club. So far, I would probably give it like a 3 out of 5, but we'll see how it goes. And then I also am about to start a new audiobook, and it's called Spells Trouble, and it's the first book in the Sisters of Salem series. It's by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, and I honestly can't tell you much about the book because I have only like listened to half of the first chapter, but it follows sisters that are witches and kind of how they have to do something. I don't even know, like, I think it's like a mission to save something. I can't remember. All I remember is that when I read the synopsis, I thought it was cool, and I'm freshly off this like fantasy kick, so I wanted to read it or listen to it. But anyways, that's my reading wrap up as of now. This is the picture I have going. I'm really liking it. I think for the house itself, I'm gonna do it in like shades of yellow. So I'm trying not to do any straight up yellow flowers. Yes, I have some oranges, but no yellows. And yeah, and we'll see how this goes. This is taking me quite some time because obviously I'm doing a ton of shading on here. Well, a ton of shading for me at least. And yeah, but I love this book. I'm really enjoying this picture. I am doing like other things in the meantime, like color by numbers and stuff. But this is the one I keep on going back to finish. And I was going to color in a different book today, just so it's like more interesting for the, for the coloring part of things. But I didn't want to start another WIP. I just genuinely didn't. So I wanted to finish this. So that's kind of why I'm still working in it. But yes, thank you so much to everybody for watching. And I will see everybody in the next one. Bye.